Hello, everyone! We're live and recording, and I'm going to start this event off with a very big virtual round of applause. I can hear you virtually clapping from across wherever your computer may be. And I am, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because we have store friends Kevin Hearne and Delilah Dawson joining us this evening. Kevin and Delilah, you guys are so amazing. We've had the pleasure of having you in the store and doing a virtual event with y'all before. So I am so insanely happy we've got y'all back. And a double birth that we are getting to celebrate everyone. So we are celebrating Kevin's Paper and Blood, and Delilah also has mine out. So double birthday, yay! And just to do a little tiny intro. So Kevin has written the series. This is book 2 in the Ink and Sigil series. And he is also known for the Iron Druid. And then Delilah also has many books under her belt. Star Wars PHASMA and Star Wars Galaxy Edge are just some of the great titles. And they have also co-written the Tales of Pell, which is a personal Mysterious Galaxy favorite because it pokes fun at all of the things that need to be poked fun at in fantasy. And oh my goodness. So Paper and Blood. I have to put on my professional reading voice for this. From the New York Times bestselling author of the Iron Druid Chronicles comes book 2 of an action-packed enchanting and fun. And it's a spin-off series as an eccentric master of rare magic solves a supernatural mystery down under. I don't know how you wouldn't want to read that after hearing that, which is why I had to share it with you guys. And then for mine, we are dipping our toes into the YA world, and we are dipping it into a creepy, chilling part of the YA world. And it is a twisty, terrifying, supernatural mystery about 12-year-old Lily, her creepy new home in Florida, and the territorial ghost of the young girl who lived there before her. Now, y'all have seen the chat section, so I feel like I don't need to point it out to you. But to the right-hand side, we have the chat section. Make sure you keep dropping all of the love. And if you have questions for Kevin and Delilah, if you look down below, you will see a button that says Ask a Question. If you click that, that is indeed where you can ask the questions. Make sure you do, because events are fun because you get to interact with the author, poke their strange, mysterious, and brilliant brain, and ask them, how did you come up with this? What? Where? And then, most importantly, if you want to give lots of love to these books of Mysterious Galaxy, there's going to be a purchase book button right down below. And we are offering signed as well as personalized book plates from both of these authors. Now, without further ado, that is enough rambling for me, and I'm going to pass it off to Delilah and Kevin, and I'll see you all at the end. Bye!
Oh no, we're unsupervised now, homie!
Oh no!
No!
Watch out, everybody!
Oh, it's gonna be kind of like.
Oh, go ahead.
It's gonna be like Gallagher. Like the front row is gonna get like the watermelon smash. It's just virtual, so a virtual.
Yeah.
Party.
I always am amazed at that. I remember watching those shows, and I'm like, what if you didn't bring one of those slickers with you? You're just like, oh, it'll be fine. You got completely soaked. That would have been kind of a really squidgy ride home after the concert.
And next time you would like read the concert, like you would read the ticket a little bit better. And
Yeah.
like, this was just our seasonal box at the Fox Theater, and oh god.
I'm so glad to be hanging out with you because it's always fun. We've been chatting quite a bit, every week anyway. Just keep it in touch. But it's different when you get to actually do an event with folks, and it's a lot of fun. So
well, I'm not wearing pajamas now, so that's a bonus.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm wearing.
Your neighbor's not cutting the lawn.
That's right. My neighbor is not doing lawn work at the moment. Yeah, it's a little bit different from when we usually have our chats. But I'm so happy that we just the publishing gods have made us have a book come out the same week, and then we get to do this with a really cool store in San Diego. So it's awesome.
They're gonna grow up like babies when your babies are the same age, and they're just like, brothers forever.
That's right. They are book buddies forever. That's for sure. And I got to tell you, everybody, like I'm reading mine right now, and I love it so much. It's it's intended for perhaps a younger reader, but you can read them as an adult. You're allowed. And it's really, really good. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. There's a, yeah. So Lily goes to, has to move to Florida because her parents make her. And they get this creepy house. And it is haunted as heck. And because Lily is maybe has a history of being maybe a little bit dramatic, parents just don't want to believe her somehow that she's being haunted. So I'm hoping the parents will, pull their collective heads out. But there's also a dog, and there's a cool kid who lives across the lake / swamp, and I'm really involved in it, and ready to find out what happened and what's up with this haunted girl. So yeah, it's so good, and I highly recommend it, you guys. I am riveted, and
the back's amazing.
Yes, the back is so good. It's basically a beautiful book, and you will like it. And then any kid in your life who likes any sort of little scary Halloween kind of stuff is going to like it too. So, yeah, please jump in.
I had to inform Kevin, and I'll tell everybody, because if you like Kevin's books, you probably have Kevin's same feelings about good dogs, because the dog lives, so you're safe.
Yes. The dog is okay, so I'm very, but Lily too. I want Lily is like a cinnamon roll, if you guys are familiar with that term. You just want everything to be okay for Lily. She's had it rough here, and I want her to be all right. So
like the Arrested Development narrator says, everything was not okay for Lily.
Dang it, that guy, the narrator comes in. So anyway, yeah, you guys should check it out for sure.
Thanks, homie. Only you, out of all the people in this whole world, would start their own book event by pipping their friend's book. Like that's the most Kevin thing I've ever heard.
Well, I'm just very excited about it. It's such a good read, and that's what we're all here for. Every time like we get into one of these things, I feel like everybody who attends is like, halfway to being my best friend anyway, because hey, we're all people who read, and not only that, we're all people who read science fiction and fantasy. So we all have this thing in common, and we're all kind of we are each other's people. So I'm always happy to do these events.
And I'm always happy to get to talk about my good friend Aloysius McBarish. And his whole coterie, because they're all amazing. And yeah, so I am so excited for people to get to read this and see another new cool place. Which, if we could start serious questions, are you ready for serious questions?
Sure.
Okay, so here's what I want to know. I know that you like to include real world details in your urban fantasies. Like I have been on a tour of the parts of Arizona that were used in Iron Druid. I have seen the Widow's house, so I know that these things you do deeper research than these, than just being like, oh, I'll just pick a town. Like these are really cool, deep places. So the places in Glasgow you actually went to that were in Ink and Sigil, but how did you get the details for the locations in Australia? Because I know like you couldn't go there because there's a pandemic now.
Yeah. I was all set to go to Australia, and I had to basically cancel it because of the pandemic. I was supposed to go in April of 2020. And of course, around that time, all of the airlines were like, nope, can't get on this thing. And so I had to figure out what to do, because my book was still due in August, and I still needed to do all my research. So I reached out to an Australian author friend, Amy Kaufman, who is a really big deal. She's a New York Times bestseller, and she's like, she has 2 different series that she co-wrote with Jay Kristoff that are in development for TV right now, the Illuminae Files and the Aurora Cycle. And if you guys are looking for some awesome YA stuff, that'll probably be on a TV screen soon. Check those out, Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. So she lives in Melbourne, and I asked her, look, could you maybe do me a solid and just take a couple of pictures for me? Or, I had so many questions, because I had all this stuff that I was wanting to go see while I was there. So I actually knew exact sort of kind of what I needed to see, because I'd done some planning. But then she was like, oh yeah, I could do that. So she actually went and took video and still photography for me for Fitzroy Gardens in Melbourne, and then did a little walk that Al does, the same walk that Al does in chapter 3, so that I can describe it all very well. And then she uploaded the videos to like a Dropbox thing, and then I got to watch them. And it was the most fun thing because, you know, she's narrating everything she's doing and what it smells like. I mean, she's a writer, so she knows what I need to know. So she's talking about all these things that she is experiencing and just kind of channeling the five senses to me, you know, as much as possible. And it was perfect. So all these details that you're seeing in Australia were really courtesy of Amy Kaufman and then another author, Nicole Hayes. Nicole Hayes went out and took some video for me in a suburb of Melbourne called Glen Waverley. And that is, I needed to find a couple of locations there for reasons. And so all those details come from Nicole, and then everything in Melbourne, and then all the stuff that's in the bush. Amy did that. She actually went hiking in the bush for me. She
lived.
Yeah, and she lived. Yeah, she was like, there was one part of the video that was actually really funny. She's like, so yeah, there's some stuff over here, but I'm not gonna go walking over there because there's brown snakes in there and they will kill me. So I'm like, yeah, don't do that, Amy. Yeah, stay over here where you'll be safe. So yeah, Australia does have its dangers, and she's very aware of what they are. And then she also was really cool about helping me figure out how emergency services work there, because it's different from the United States and Canada. If there's an emergency here, we're like, 911, help, and then they send somebody, right? But in Australia, they have volunteers called SES, the State Emergency Service. But the volunteers are local, and they get trained to help with floods and fires and stuff like that. And most importantly, missing hikers in the bush, because it happens a lot. So they are always organizing and trying to find folks, and they have a very, they work in conjunction with police and fire to get things done for the citizens there. It's really cool. So I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't talked to Amy. That is, so she gets a huge shout out in even a Tuckerization in the book because of how much help she gave me. It couldn't have done it without her. It's awesome.
So the people need to know, and I need to know, is there a wombat in this book?
There is. Yeah. Yes. I love wombats, and I know you do too. You have shared with me the wombat Instagram accounts that we follow, and every so often I will pester Kimberly like, oh, look, a wombat. She's like, honey, that's a wombat. So yeah, I love it. It's great. So I had to put a wombat in there. And I also put in some other little critters here and there, but there's mostly strange magical beasties in there. So I hope you guys like them. Chimeras.
I tell you, one of my favorite strange magical beasties is a certain pink lad named Buck Foy. I have to know where he came from, homie. Where did you decide, you know what this book needs?
Part of that was Al is such, he's an older gentleman. He's a 63-year-old guy who would like to retire soon. He's very sort of proper and set in his ways. But at the same time, he needed a foil, right? And so I'm like, well, what can I do here? And what would be appropriate and work in with, the established world of the Iron Druid Chronicles? And I thought the Hobgoblin would be a lot of fun. This is also in much the same way that Oberon was. He was sort of a joke because, referring to A Midsummer Night's Dream, he was supposed to be the king of the fairies, but that's not the way the Irish mythology actually works. That was Shakespeare making stuff up. So Atticus named his dog Oberon almost as a joke. So then I thought, Buck Foy would also be kind of a little bit of a joke for his name, but also be a figure that would harken back to that same play, Midsummer Night's Dream, because of course we have Robin Goodfellow or Puck in that play. And the role that Puck played was basically to be sort of a servant to Oberon, but also somebody who messes around and screws things up. And, so I'm kind of basing Buck Foy on Puck a little bit. And that's where it came from. Yeah.
So speaking of Aloysius, I love every time Luke Daniels says Aloysius. It's the best name because it doesn't look like it should be. It looks like it should be Aloysius, but it's Aloysius.
Yeah.
Tell us about Al McVarish.
Well, Al McVarish is this. I was mentioning, he's a pensioner and he would like to retire, but he's a master of ink and sigil magic. He is actually, his proper title is a sigil agent, and he's basically writing and enforcing magical contracts with the Fae and other pantheons of the world to try to keep them separate from humans and keep everything on the down low. And this was something that it kind of gets revealed that the gods wanted this to actually be that way, because if one particular pantheon got recognized by humans as being real, it would actually necessarily hurt all of the others. It was better to keep everything vague and keep everybody believing in what they were believing for everybody's benefit. So that's kind of what Al has to do. He has a territory. There are 4 other sigil agents that have their own territories around the world. And Al is also cursed. And so that overarching thing of the Ink and Sigil series is him trying to figure out who cursed him. And when you're dealing with gods and, all kinds of supernatural beings, that's sort of an occupational hazard. So Al is, he's got issues, but he also has access to basically druidic magic through using magical inks and sigils taught to him by Briad, first among the Fae. So that's who he is and what he's up to. He's just trying to train up an apprentice so that he can retire. And he's a widower, and now he's got a hobgoblin who's in service to him and is causing him all sorts of mischief. So there you go.
Okay, and now as we round out the triumvirate here, I have to ask: was Nadia inspired by our favorite metal editor?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Just her look. I asked. So our editor is Trisha Narwani, and I asked Trisha. I said, do you mind if I, kind of base Nadia's look a little bit on yours? And she's like, oh no, that's fine.
Look, I made the most badass character you've ever met.
Yeah. Basically, because Trisha is all about brass knuckles and stuff like that, and she does kickboxing and things like that. So, I wanted to have Nadia be this utter badass, and I actually asked Trisha, I'm like, so what do you think when Nadia shows up at Paper and Blood? What should she be wearing? And Trisha's like, all of the spikes, all of them, everywhere. And I'm like, all right, we're doing it. And so, I just had a great time with Nadia all the way through. And she doesn't get a chance to grow terribly much. We learned that she is growing, so her powers are growing, and she doesn't know why. And we're going to have to get into that in another book. But, for this particular book, we have the return of Atticus and Oberon. Okay,
has anyone ever done for you fan art of the Wizard Van or Buck Foy, or Buck Foy being excited by the Wizard Van? Because I feel like that needs to be on your wall.
I agree, it does. I haven't had I've had separate a depiction of just Buck Foy by himself, and then I've had depictions of the Wizard Van by itself, but not Buck Foy really enjoying the Wizard Van. So
can you describe the Wizard Van for people who perhaps are not familiar yet with the series, and this will convince you to buy it if you haven't already.
Yeah, it's in Ink and Sigil. So the Wizard Van, it's Nadia's Wizard Van, and this is definitely a wish fulfillment thing on my part. I wish I had a Wizard Van, and I don't understand why they aren't more popular, because the art that you can put on the side of a van is incredible. So on Nadia's Wizard Van, there's just a field of, like a battlefield of, dead folks who have been slain by a god named Lurnog who eats men, shish kebabs and stuff. And he has a giant, glass of whiskey in his hand, stuff like that. But then Nadia is the wizard on a lizard who is coming with this eldritch green fire to fight off Lurnog and save mankind. So it's this epic sort of illustration of the kind that you might see on a sort of an old-fashioned epic fantasy novel. And I want a van like that, really. And then on the interior, there's like these over-the-top decorations on the inside. So that's also what I would love is the van interior to be this sort of space that deserves to be featured on HGTV, because it's so well done. So that's the deal. And so when they go to Australia in Paper and Blood, they can't bring Nadia's Wizard Van. Buck Foy has to make a new one. So that is fun as heck too. So Wizard Vans forever, someday. Okay.
So I've already seeing it pop up in the chat here, so I have to know as well. Atticus and Oberon, they're in this. Not just one scene that's a flashback, but they're legit in it.
Yes, they are. It's a huge part of the whole thing. It is. They show up. I think chapter 7, 8, somewhere in there. They show up, and then they're there for the rest of the book. And Atticus gets to tell a story from his past. Oberon gets a chapter to himself to tell a story. Buck Foy also has a story that he gets to tell at one point. So it's a lot of fun with mixing the old cast and the new in this particular book. And a weird chronology thing is that there's going to be a short story coming out in an anthology next May. It's called Heroic Hearts. And I wrote the short story. Originally, before the pandemic, this anthology was supposed to come out before Paper and Blood. So I wanted a short story that would happen just before Paper and Blood did. It didn't work out that way because of pandemic publishing schedules. Okay, so Paper and Blood comes out first. But when Atticus and Oberon show up in Paper and Blood, they make reference to where they had just been. They had been somewhere else in Australia dealing with something, and Oberon was just a tiny bit singed, So Al asks him, "Are you okay?" He says, "Oh yeah, I'll be fine, but we had some issues over here." So that the issues that they had are going to be in this story called Fire Hazard, and that's going to be out in this anthology called Heroic Hearts with like Jim Butcher, Kelly Armstrong, Charlene Harris, Patricia Briggs. I mean, it's got all of these amazing authors in it, and I'm lucky to be included with it. But Oberon's got a story in there too. So there you go. You guys should enjoy the return of all the Iron Druid peeps.
So I saw on Twitter today a Tiny Atticus. What is the story of Tiny Atticus?
Oh yeah, there's a Hero Forge minis. They have this really cool tool that you can use to build custom miniatures for role-playing games. So you can make your dwarf or your elf or your barbarians or whatever you'd like to do. But they also were able to make a very, very passable Atticus O'Sullivan. And the only things that were really kind of missing, the major thing that was missing was the tattoos, but you can paint those on if you have somebody amazing who can do that, and I do. I have a buddy named Alan O'Brien. If you want to follow him on Twitter, it's at Gorilla Brush, and you can see the work that he does. He's based out in Arizona. He does incredible freehand work on tattoos or any kind of patterns on fabric. I mean, he's won awards for his miniature painting. I don't even know how he does it. It blows my mind when I see it, the kind of detail that he can get. So he is going to paint Atticus for me. So what you'll see, if you want to go, I think I've got this on, I've got it on my Twitter feed. I've got it on, it'll be on my Instagram tomorrow. It's on my Facebook, but there's a link to it. You can buy the miniature if you want, and then you can paint it yourself, or you can have somebody else paint it. And there's a version of Atticus too, where the way he appears in Paper and Blood. And so there's two different versions of them, but you can always get the somebody else to paint it, or you can paint it yourself. And I just love that they have that option, because you could also build a Granuaile. You could build, a Leif Helgerson and a Hal Hawk, and any characters you want, and do a whole little, maybe a D&D session that's based in the Iron Druid world. Melina, what if you got Melina Sokolowski in there? She gets her Hell Whip out. That'd be fun too. So I think that I'm just really super jazzed that Hero Forge is doing this. What we're going to do today, we're just revealing that it exists, and you can buy one if you want. But we also are going to do a giveaway down the road where we have a finished model. Alan is going to paint 2 of the Atticus ones for me, okay? And I get to keep one, but we're going to give one away. So to some lucky reader out there, they'll get a completely awesome, finished miniature painted by Alan. So that'll, pay attention on Twitter and Instagram. That's where and probably Facebook too. We're going to be giving away there. So that was super fun. That was a really geeky thing that happened today.
So we have a question here from Heidi. What was it like to revisit Atticus and Oberon in the context of another series?
Well, it was a lot of fun because we're approaching these characters from somebody else's point of view. And so they are going to see things, notice things that maybe you didn't get when it was from Atticus's point of view. And I really like that part of it so that we can come to appreciate the character in a different way. So we also got a point, though, where, Oberon got to tell his story in his own voice, and that was a lot of fun, too. So, it was kind of the best of all possible worlds in a way, where I got to have Atticus and Oberon speak and do their thing that everybody is kind of already familiar with, but also have the additional insight from other folks.
I bet Luke was really happy to get to do Oberon's voice again.
Yeah.
Did you, I know, maybe, can you talk to people? I think this is also a question, but I think it's a great thing to talk about because I love hearing about it, about the audiobook, how the audiobook of Ink and Sigil was produced. And maybe you could tell folks about how Luke came into your life because it's like he was made for your books.
Yeah, for sure. Luke is a classically trained actor. He was actually a Shakespearean actor for, before he got into audiobooks. And we met entirely by accident. His audition tape was just kind of perfect for when Hounded was going to be recorded. And it turned out that he was so dang popular that the audiobooks are so dang popular that he now does all my stuff, and I actually sell more audiobooks than I do print, so it's kind of wild how it took off. But he's so good to work with. And I hardly have to do anything at all, to coach him. Only if there's like stuff from maybe an obscure language, something, maybe I'll coach him on that. But I don't really have to do much. Otherwise, I like the pronunciation guide I put at the beginning of the books. He just kind of reads that and like, okay, I'm good. And but I also try to mess with him a little bit. Like I will purposely pick some kind of word or a phrase that I know linguistically is difficult to say, just to try to trip him up. Because it's no big deal. He when he runs across it, it's just like one or two things per book where I do that. And when he runs across it, he knows it too. He's like, damn it, Kevin, you did this on purpose. And yeah, I did. He's even got I think at the end of A Question of Navigation. That's my science fiction novella, A Question of Navigation.
With Subterranean Press, it's super beautiful. Yes,
it's gorgeous. And he did the audiobook for that. But because we were able to do it ourselves and not have the publisher do it, we put in a blooper reel at the end. So there's this one phrase where you can see that he has to do it like 4 or 5 times before he gets it right. And he's like, damn it. So it's pretty amusing to listen to a blooper reel like that. But he reads the books cold. He'll go back and redo stuff as he needs to. But really, he's usually almost, the majority of the book, he is reading it like you would sight read music. He's just doing all those voices just flawlessly as he goes through. He's amazing.
It was so much fun when we were in, I think that was at Anderson's bookshop in Chicago when he came out with us and read some from Kill the Farm Boy and then Princess Spirit. It was the best.
Yeah. Because you think he's got to be like set up in a studio where, he does multiple takes with a director or something like that. And he has to cut all the time or something like that, but he doesn't. He could just flow from one voice to another on the fly. It's great.
Okay, so speaking of flow, someone here has asked a question about your favorite phrase in the human language, which is, how do I get Cuddle Dungeon? I'd like to tell the people what Cuddle Dungeon is and where Cuddle Dungeon came from and where they can get Cuddle Dungeon.
Okay. Cuddle Dungeon is a phrase that came up when I was in a car with Jay Wells and Charlene Harris in Phoenix one time. And we were looking at a castle on Camelback Mountain. And I was telling them that they had basically this old castle there. They had a sex dungeon built into it. And, I think Jay Wells says something like, well, you mean a Cuddle Dungeon, right? And I'm like, oh my God, that's great. I love that. So can I use that, please? She's like, sure, go ahead. So the Cuddle Dungeon story is where Al McVarish first shows up in the Iron Druid Chronicles. And you can find that story in Besieged. It's a short story collection that we published, and you should honestly read. It's supposed to be read between books 8 and 9, between Staked and Scourged, because Cuddle Dungeon and all the stories that follow after it are really like half a novel of stuff that leads up into Scourged, and they're all kind of important. Really, it really kind of sets the stage for all the relationship stuff that happens in Scourged. So yeah. That's the story of that. I mean, the only other part of the Cuddle Dungeon that you don't read that one aloud or have it read aloud with your kids unless you like answering awkward questions, because it is an S&M dungeon that is featured there, and I had to get some coaching, I guess, or some not advice, but yes, some information, shall we say, from a professional dominatrix who is very cool, a fan of the series and so on. I said, well, I want to make sure that I'm representing everything correctly here. So would you check this out and see if I'm doing it right? And she's like, okay, well, most of this is good, but you need to probably tweak this. So yeah, she was really cool. I gave her a shout out in the acknowledgements for Besieged too. She's great. So
you had a story in 3 Slices that was between 2 books too, didn't you? I seem to remember there was a novella in 3 Slices that was one of those bridge stories. Yes,
the A Prelude to War is in 3 Slices, and that's in between books 7 and 8. So yeah, I keep cheating and having all these little stories in between things, but it's all one big chronology and it all works out. So yeah. Lynn Kaufman in the chat. Yeah. Go back and look for Besieged and find Cuddle Dungeon, and I'm sure you'll remember it. It's Perun and Flittish and what they were doing in Edinburgh. So there you go. And I'm sorry, what did you have another? I thought you were going to ask me another one, but I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm going to keep asking you questions. Otherwise, it'd be awkward if I just kind of sat and stared at you.
Okay. Well,
if people don't know, we have some anthologies we did together with our friend Chuck Wendig. We have one called 3 Slices and one called Death and Honey. That if you haven't read those short stories, are
awesome.
Pertinent. Yes. Awesome. Yes,
they are. And Death and Honey, like the cover art for that is probably my favorite. If you guys haven't seen it, look up Death and Honey, and it's got Atticus, Oberon, and Starbuck looking up at a beehive kind of thing. But it's beautiful, illustrated by Galen Darragh. And speaking of books, I'd like to point out a little something. You see that little button down there that says "Purchase Books"? Yeah, that little button there. I think you guys should use that sucker. And here's what's going to happen if you do. I have these signed book plates ready to go that are all cool themed, like ink and sigil. And what Mysterious Galaxy is offering, unlike anybody else, is that you have the opportunity to get these personalized. So if you order a book, they'll kind of walk you through it, but basically there's a comment field in the order form. And in that comment field, you can ask for this to be personalized. And so what I mean is, you can see there's not a ton of room, but what I would do is I would add in, for Sally, or, to Jed, whatever you would like. And then I mail these super fast over to Mysterious Galaxy. Then they will include it with your order. So it means that the book takes just a tiny bit longer to get to you because we have to wait for me to do this and send it to them and all that. But you will have a personalized book plate. You can also order just signed and not personalized if you want. You just put that in the comments too. So this goes for ink and sigil. This goes for paper and blood. And guess what? Delilah has them too. She's got book plates as well. So if you want to order mine or anything that Delilah has written, she will also give a signed book plate to you if you'd like. Just ask for it in the comment section of your order. And I want to thank you in advance for not just buying the book, but supporting an independent bookstore. Mysterious Galaxy is amazing.
They've always been so good to us. We're so grateful for them.
And they're good to all authors. In the sci-fi fantasy community, they're one of the best bookstores in the United States, and we gotta support them. So thank you so much for supporting an indie bookstore. And it's indie bookstores that can get you fun little stuff like this. So I'm looking forward to filling all these out for you guys. Thank you. Do we have some more questions from folks?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we have good questions.
Oh, good.
Great questions. So what scene brought you the most joy to write in Paper and Blood, and which scene was the most challenging?
Okay. I actually know the answers. Yay! What was most fun for me was a chapter called The Alabama Troll Slayer.
Sounds like a really good drink.
It does, doesn't it? So yeah, it's basically a long story told by Buck Foy about the war that the hobgoblins had with the trolls and the role that hobgoblins kind of play in Fey society, and the surprising origin of a certain piece of Americana that comes from hobgoblins and not what people thought it came from. And I don't want to spoil what that is, but that was my most fun. I thought I had a blast writing that stuff. The most challenging stuff to write was some of the stuff near the end that I don't want to spoil what happens, but there's a chapter at the end with Atticus and Gladys, who has seen some shite. And that was a tough one to write, but I'm hearing that I did okay because somebody's like, I was crying. And I'm like, yeah, I did it. No, but you're like, no, not crying in a bad way. More
okay.
More cathartic than than very sad. Okay, how's that?
Okay,
so, yeah, it was a tough chapter to write, to hit the right balance, the right note for that. But yeah, I'm glad I did it. I feel good about it. So, thanks for the question.
Can't take it back now. It's out in the world.
Yeah.
Are there any scenes that when you listen to the audiobook came to life in a different manner than how they originally were in your head? Pretty much Scottish there. Did you hear it? Head.
Yeah, that's right. That was good. All of them, actually, because the voices in my head are very different from the voices that Luke records. And that's fine because it's a different medium and he is a performer and he's going to bring his own, talent to it. And what I think is fun about them is that when I listen to them, even though I know what the jokes are ahead of time, I'm still laughing because of his delivery. And you had this experience with me too, Delilah, right?
Kill the Farm Boy. God, yeah. The first time we heard Gustav's voice, and we were both like dying.
Yeah. When we hear what Luke does with these, they sound one way in our heads, but we have zero problem with the way Luke does it, because it's hilarious. So all of that stuff is absolutely valid. The different, interpretations of things, whatever voice you have in your head, if you're reading it, you're not doing the audiobook, it's fine. Mean, it
wouldn't be fine if they were like all Donald Duck voices, but
right. Yeah, exactly.
That would just be weird.
Yeah, but Luke has such a talent for doing these great different voices. I really liked his voice for Olfactory in the Kill Farm Boy as well.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it was a good time. It was really enjoyable to listen to that. And if you guys are looking for some fun stuff, right? The Tales of Pell that I wrote with Delilah was a complete joy to write. And we had such fun making loving fun of epic fantasy. Yeah, you should maybe talk about that a tiny bit if you want to.
Kill the Farm Boy?
Or any of them, yeah. Just tell people about the Tales of Pell, because they might not have heard about it yet.
Yeah, so the Tales of Pell, Kevin and I were in Texas airport eating really bad barbecue when he told me he wanted to do an anthology called that would be about lovingly skewering fantasy tropes, and each writer would get their own story, and one person could do the chainmail bikini trope, and one person could do Kevin claimed Kill the Farm Boy. That was the idea, but then we were like, oh, all of these, the 6-fingered count, like you can just take all of these tropes and enjoy them. And so we started, we made a list, and Kevin did emails. Then we started going, oh, this is a lot of work. I just want to write. I don't want to corral authors. This is like trying to train cats. And then we had to find an agent who would sell and the money, and we're really very lazy. So it kind of went on the back burner. And then I guess one day I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. And I was like, if we just wrote this as a book together, you can write half the book and then maybe make the same money for writing half a book. Like that seems like good. I can do that math.
Yeah.
And then we just started playing around, and I think Twitter DMs throwing back and forth these ridiculous things, and then somehow it worked.
Yeah, it was great. It was the most fun because, you know, I would write a chapter and send it to Delilah, and then a couple of days later I get a chapter back and it makes me crack up, and they're like, okay, crap, how am I going to top that? And it was just complete joy writing that thing together. And I really love the fact that we didn't take ownership of the characters. Sometimes I would write a character that Delilah made up, and sometimes she would write a character that I made up, and it worked out great.
It's like a big game of improv. We never said no, but it was always yes, and it just all built. And then the second book is called No Country for Old Gnomes. And we came up with that whole idea in New Orleans, going from bar to bar, listening to music and taking in the art and trying different interesting drinks. The third book is The Princess Beard, and we did story breaking for that one in Seattle, where we had kind of a more maritime theme. We had sushi, and then we had spam musubi, and we had like flaming cocktails, and so there's some piratical stuff about that.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that you can read these in any order.
Oh yeah.
So you guys check, like I see that Mysterious Galaxy is helpfully posting links, and if you want to check them out and see, you know, which one appeals to you most, go ahead and start with that one. You don't have to read them in order.
And Luke Daniels did all of the audiobooks, so if you're really into his audiobooks, like they're here for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So,
and he did your Plague of Giants series. Well, he did the Seven Kennings, right?
Yeah. The Seven Kennings is actually what I'm working on at the moment. There's 2 books out now, A Plague of Giants and A Blight of Black Wings. And the third book, the final book in the trilogy, is called A Curse of Krakens. And so, I'm working hard on that at the moment.
Do you want to tell people a little bit about that series? Because they might not have heard of it.
Okay, sure. The Seven Kennings is a much more serious high fantasy thing, and kind of a mountain that I've always wanted to climb, just to challenge myself as a writer, because I used to teach high school English, and I was teaching Homer, you know, and Virgil all the time, these really, you know, the original epics, and I loved the idea of a bard telling a story to an audience a little bit at a time each night, and you know, building this incredible story, and that would be their entertainment. And I was wondering if there would be a way to update that idea for a modern prose audience instead of doing heroic couplets and stuff. So I have a bard, a Raylick bard. He's from the country of Rael. So the Raylick bard is telling the story of a war that a whole bunch of people have lived through. He's in the city. He gets on top of the wall. His magical ability is to be able to project his voice so that everybody can hear him. So he is telling the story of this war to a sea of refugees that have been driven there by this war. And they don't, you know, unfortunately, they don't know a lot of times like why these invaders came, and they don't understand what happened. But this bard has been able to collect the stories of a whole bunch of different people involved in it and then put it together into a narrative. So his other magical ability is to take on this seeming and the voice of people that he's met. So he's up there telling the stories in the voices of different folks. So structurally, this is a 11 point of view, 11 different first-person points of view.
I don't even have that many fingers, homie. I don't know how you do that.
Right. So it's a complicated structural book, but all of these different people tell the story. That was another part of what I wanted to do. I didn't want it to tell the story of, well, this king or this prince or this, you know, important person. And I'm like, well, you know, these big stories they happen to everybody. And so people from all different parts of society deserve to have a voice and a part in the telling. So that's what's going on there. A Plague of Giants is the very first one. You have an invasion of this country from a continent. There's a whole continent that gets invaded by 2 different sets of giants from either coast. And these giants have different agendas, but it's bad news for the people on that continent no matter what. So they're all trying to recover and figure out what's happening and why did it happen and so on and so forth. So and then there's magic. So there you go.
And there's mustard stains.
And there's mustard stains. Yes, there's a lot of other stuff that, you know, inclusivity. There's people who are all different. You know, we've got different ages. We have different abilities. We have different, you know, sexualities. We have different people basically, and so they're all telling their part of the story. So, yeah, I hope you guys dig it. If you want to give it a try.
So that leads into a good question, because we've talked about all of your series. So each of your series has a different style of writing. How intentional is that, and how do you manage to keep it consistent?
Oh, it's yeah, the voice thing. That's a really good question. When I wanted to start writing, it was because I read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. And you read it now, and it's like, oh, this is problematic. You know, there's some stuff in there. Woo. But when I first read it as a freshman in college, and this is what made me want to become a writer, because what he did with the narrator is establish him as somebody who is having, you know, mental health issues, and his language reflected that a little bit. It was a little disjointed, it run-on sentences, all kinds of stuff happening. Then as he gets better throughout the book, the language improves. And I was blown away by that technique, and also sort of how accurate it is. One of the things that you notice when somebody is impaired, you know, like maybe they've had too much to drink, or maybe they're suffering a stroke, is that their speech is affected. And so speech is really a thing that indicates, to some extent, how a person is doing mentally at the moment, and really defines who they are. What words do they use? How do they use them? Are they always swearing? Are they very proper? Do they ever use contractions or slang? You know, all that kind of stuff gives you a hint about the character. So that's what I'm paying attention to quite a bit. And a lot of it is not necessarily something you might see on the surface, but it's in my head, especially when I'm doing the 7 kennings, because you have all these different points of view, all these different characters, and none of them can be me. So yeah, that's the approach I take. It's a linguistic one. So.
I think also, as your friend, before you get back into a series, you tend to read. You know, you don't just pick it up cold. You read the book that came before it. You get immersed in your own books. You get that in your head before you switch gears.
Yeah, I do. I actually have, you know, I basically write them all in the same, or write the same voice at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, I don't go head hopping. I will stick with one character and write all of that character's bits or chapters, and then they kind of mix together later. But while I'm writing, I try to stay in one character's headspace and get that done so that I can be consistent with the language. So, yeah.
Good question. I don't know how you do it with 7 kennings. It's whew.
Yeah, I won't be doing that again. But like I said, it's just a challenge. I wanted to challenge myself to see if it could be done. So yeah, it's work.
All right, homie. So do you have a source you recommend for research on historic sigils or iconography? Because somebody wants that gall recipe is what's happening now.
Yeah. I don't have one, honestly. There are, you know, the magical sigils that are out there that we see. A lot of them are coming from the Book of Solomon and the Greater Book of Solomon and the Lesser Book of Solomon. And those are kind of well-known grimoires that exist out there that contain sigils. They're Aleister Crowley was using them, you know. And then there's some other stuff that exists out there, but I haven't really pushed myself to seek them out. What I'm doing instead is I'm looking at how this fits into the Iron Druid universe. My sigils are Celtic based. They're not something that already existed out there. Breed made them up in the 19th century because she needed to start, you know, the Industrial Revolution was happening and photography was happening. She needed to get the gods out of sight. All the gods wanted to be out of sight, but Breed wanted to make sigil agents to help write these contracts and make binding contracts. So the sigils are druidic bindings in magical form that can only come into effect if you use the proper magical ink. Otherwise, they're just scribbles on a piece of paper. So that's the combination. You have to know the recipe for the ink, and then you also have to draw the sigil properly, and then you get a druidic binding, basically. So it's very secretive, and nothing is the teaching of the recipes has to be memorized. Nothing is written down so that it can't be stolen, and so on and so forth. You have the old master-apprentice relationship thing going on. So that's how I kind of built it. I wasn't really building it on sigils that already existed. So that helped a little bit.
All right. Now we have, are you two going to continue the series? So I'm guessing that's for Kill the Farm Boy. Was a question asked.
Oh, okay. So for the Tales of Pell, we'd be delighted to write more. Yeah. We're both really busy with other stuff at the moment, but we'd love to come back to it. If you guys read them and like them and tell all your friends and create that demand, then we'll supply it.
Now you just get somebody to make a movie for it, and we'll keep writing them forever.
Yeah,
that's right. We do have a secret pet project that we need to get writing one of these days.
We do. We that one guy has to finish that thing he's doing, and then we could get on that.
Because the world needs those umlauts.
That's right. So yeah, I hope to be writing some more stuff with Delilah soon.
Anytime, homie.
Yeah, we'd love to write the Tales of Pell too. We actually have some ideas for it, and we hope to get back to it at some point. So.
All right. Well, y'all, if you have a question, you got to put it in there now because we are running out of time, but we are here for you. So how fast can you type if you have a question for Mr. Hearne?
Yeah, right.
You can put it in the chat too. We can see the chat. So if you have a question and the question, ask a question is scary, you can just put it in the chat.
Yeah, I've seen. I'm sorry, I haven't really been keeping up with the chat, but there's some great stuff.
Saying really nice things.
Yes, thank you so much for your kindness. I really appreciate it. And Mysterious Galaxy just killing it with the links up here. I got a thing that I would like to do just as nobody's asking me a question about it, but I would just like to share with everybody some great stuff that I've been enjoying to read, besides my stuff and your stuff, right? The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart is freaking amazing. It's so good. Really cool magical system. And I highly recommend it if you guys want to. It is like an epic fantasy, but really not one you've read before. You know what I mean? It's good shit. So check that out, The Bone Shard Daughter. 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Harrow. I recommend to everybody all the time. So good. And then I've got to read The Book of Accidents by Chuck. I'm just hearing all these.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, you do your recommendations.
So well, I was gonna say The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig, which was very affecting. I will also, I will knock over everything on my desk is what I will do. These are two of my book sisters that just came out on the same day as me. If you like middle grade horror like mine, Catherine Arden has this series. Ali Malinenko is a debut author with Ghost Girl, but these are really fun middle grade books if you or the kids in your life like middle grade horror.
Middle grade stuff also. I'm going to piggyback and give a couple of more because you made me think of it. Weird Kid by Greg Van Eekhout.
Yeah. Oh, everything Greg does is great.
Yeah, Greg is awesome. And I really connected with Weird Kid because it's about a weird kid in Arizona with a dog. And I'm like, that was me. Thank you for writing a book about me, Greg. So except that this weird kid's really an alien and he's trying to keep his secrets, but it makes him feel really awkward and all that kind of stuff. So it's a wonderful sort of metaphor for being the weird kid, and I love it a lot. That's a real fun one. And then there's another great one called Bump by Matt Wallace, and it is about a girl named MJ who wants to become a professional wrestler. And so it's also one of these stories where she has a very sort of niche interest, and maybe some other kids would make her feel like she's weird because she likes something different, right? So she's dealing with that kind of stuff too, but also really enjoying the fact that she has found her people, and then she wants to defend them and help them and grow with them, and so it's really heartwarming too. So there you go. Bump by Matt Wallace, Weird Kid by Greg Van Eekhout. We have Dark Waters by Catherine Arden, and then Ghost. What is it? Ghost Girl?
Yeah, Ghost Girl by Ali Malinenko. She's a brand new author.
Malinenko. Okay. All right. Cool. I'm really enjoying
Isn't this cover great? Oh
yeah.
It reminds me of Chuck's cover for Dustin Grimm, which is coming out in I think October. So
yeah, so good. I'm enjoying the middle grade stuff because you can read them fast, and it's sort of like reading novels or novellas or something like that too. So yeah, that's good stuff. I'm enjoying a lot of stuff. Yay!
Oh, somebody just asked about our Ask the Bards podcast. We were outlining that book. If we did anything else with the thing, that was I missed that. That was super fun. Yeah, so we did briefly a podcast where we answered people's questions about writing, and then the pandemic hit. It was very awkward timing. But we were outlining a book kind of in real time so people could hear our back and forth and how we, chose where to go. And no, Kevin wrote a cool first chapter, but things got weird, and it's like we could go back to it someday. But I feel like every time we have a good idea, it's like there's always just more new good ideas, and we get more. It's like a kid at Christmas where you're like, oh boy, I always wanted this. What's in that present? And then you forget.
Yeah. The other thing that happened was that Delilah got under contract for 9 books, so yeah, she's a little busy right now. You can't really add another one onto that pile at the moment. But yeah, that's what happened there. We were just so busy. I was having fun outlining that idea. It sounded like a great time. Yeah. But we have these different projects. I have to write my epic, and then I have to write the 3rd ink and sigil book, and Delilah's got seriously 9 books under contract at the moment. So
I'm working on my 2nd Minecraft book right now.
Yeah. So if things work out, we'll get back to that, and if not, we'll get to something, because we always have
umlauts are in line next.
I'm sorry?
Umlauts are in line next.
Oh yes, we got to do the umlauts with that guy. Yeah. So that'll be fun. Oh, and Delilah does have cool comics too. Yeah, somebody said in the chat. Lee, hi Lee.
Lee is always so supportive of us too.
Yes, love it, very, very much. So you've never? Oh, hey, Kelly has never attended an event like this. Yeah, I'm so glad that you decided to join us. And Mysterious Galaxy does a lot of these great events, and a whole bunch of other stores do them too. That's kind of what everybody's doing at the moment because of the pandemic. So it actually means that you can always just see authors doing stuff like this from the comfort of your couch, which is kind of cool. So.
I feel like we could go on forever, but I think we've already gone over our allotted time slot, and Mysterious Galaxy might want to go to bed.
You summon and I shall appear.
You said 45 minutes, we did an hour. It's fine.
I was like, but I have a feeling it will go to the hour because you guys kept on asking great questions. And I also do have to say, serious shout out to all the middle grade love, because one of the things we've been talking about in the store is sometimes people shy away from books if it's middle grade because they're it's a kid's book, and it's they're just good stories. It doesn't matter what age you are. Mine is a perfect example of that. It's a good story. So I was like, oh, yay for all of the middle grade love. Also, too, it's such great because, if you want to give them horror, but not you want to only mildly creep them out, not scar them for life if it's a young reader, then there's a lot of really.
I would say you have to discover Pet Sematary on your own. Someone can't force it on you. You have to be oh, forbidden book, and then it infects you for life.
Exactly. So if you want to gently push them in the direction of self-discovery,
don't touch that book, kids. It's too scary for you.
Everyone always rushes now. All the kids are okay, we would never read that. No, thank you. But oh my gosh, I'm I think you guys are so much fun to talk to. No, I'm continuing talking, but I want to thank you so much, Kevin. And so much, Delilah. Everyone, thank you for all of the love in the comments you have been giving these two. And everyone, Paper and Blood is out on the shelves. I can't wait to hear everyone's reaction. Mine is also out on the shelves as well. Go check both of them out because, as you can tell, you have 2 fabulous and amazing authors. So go and make sure you give them lots of love. And on that note, we are going to say a massive thank you and have an amazing night.
Thank you all
Thank you, everybody. You're the best.
Congratulations.
Right. You too, buddy.